I need to make sure this content, this recording is A1. But we are back with another episode of the Property by Kazy podcast with Mr. Brighter Investments, Mr. Structural Damage, Mr. Romero. How you doing?
I'm okay, thank you very much, Kazy.
Good. We appreciate you coming down today. So as always, we're just going to chop it up, talk some property stuff. You've been in property for 8 years.
Correct.
You've done bits of everything, and now we're looking at doing a lot more. Seeing you got, I think, like 11 projects like in different stages.
Yeah, correct.
It's busy. How do you manage 11 projects?
I think the main thing, I was thinking about that on the way here, is probably just going to like the team's point of view. Yeah. So obviously you've always got myself sitting here, but then there's probably 5 or 6 other people in the background, not necessarily that they're employed by Brighter Investments, but one of them could be a builder that I've been working with for the past 8 years that is in a stage now of his career where he can run the whole show. Yeah. So although he's a builder, yes, he's pricing the refurb, he can actually manage it as well and say, look, I know where the kitchen's going to go. I can do the kitchen design. I can dictate what kind of skirting is going to go there. Yes, we have the initial conversation at the start.
He knows the standard that you want, and that's the thing. I think relationships in this game are so key. If you can 100%. Foster them, like even if like people's prices go up a little bit, and you think, oh, I could get somebody in for maybe a little bit cheaper. It's just
that's it.
The value of that cheaper, what that could cost you in the long term 100%. For losing a good trade.
100%. And I think you get to a point sometimes where, I mean, a lot of people say, look, you buy at the start until you get the right price at the start of a property. So I kind of say, like, look, if you get it for the right price, okay, if you're going to make, let's say, we're going to say 20 grand. Yeah. The builder you've been working for 8 years, if you're going to make 17 grand, it's 3 grand less. So he kind of takes a 3 grand drink. But is that really a problem? Yeah, and that's kind of my answer.
And that's the thing. That this is I've had this conversation a lot recently as well, because I was like, I got friends that are like trying to get into property now, but a lot of them are builders, and when they're showing me their deal appraisal, their deals are only stacking because their build cost is so low. Yes, and I'm like, that doesn't have sustainability, because in reality, what you're then doing is you're buying the property, you're doing all this work, but the majority of your margins, the deal. Is from the fact that you're doing it for cheaper. Yeah. So you might as well just subcontract your service to somebody else and make that profits from somebody else's job, rather than going to put all your money and all your risk into a project yourself. So I think what you said is key, and we always speak about it, that, you know, buying at the right price is where you make your money. Yeah. And if you know what I mean, you don't always have to maximize. I think as property people, like a lot of the time we're always looking for that perfect deal and to knock people on stuff and negotiate back. That's it. But if you do it the other way and you like kind of work with consistent, maybe slightly smaller margins, I think your longevity in the game.
That's it. And I think even just to add to your question as well, in the whole team point of view, is I years ago, I think it was 2018, branched about an hour and 20 minutes away from where I'm based in Nottingham to a place called Lincoln. Yeah. And although I branched to Lincoln, I took my lads that I was working for the previous 4 years to Lincoln. But while I did that, I also then kind of made links with kind of like a new contractor in Lincoln, but he didn't take that job, but he came in and did one element. I think he came in and did plastering, for example, because I was adamant that I wanted to see what he's about and to try and form a connection with him. So be it, he has a plastering contract for like a big company over there that does new build homes. So because I wanted to get into that space, I thought, hang on a minute, over the next 2 or 3 years, why not give him some of my house refurbs, but still pull on his connections with all these new build specialist contractors that he's working with that do groundworks and the brickies and all that kind of stuff. So today, as we speak, in the last kind of 12 months or so, in terms of that geographical area, when I do a new build there, I simply work with him and he brings all the guys he's been working with for the past 10, 15 years, and also his friends from school that now do groundwork, stuff like that, to come and do the job. So I'm pulling on his connection, although I'm the main guy, but he's bringing them in.
Because you built those relationships, and that's the thing. Yeah. Like property and business as a whole is like a people business. If you struggle to build relationships with people, you're gonna struggle to be successful in property, right? Because whether it's your agents, whether it's your broker, whether it's your architect, if these people don't like you, you're not gonna get your planning, you're not gonna get your deal across the line. You know what I mean, your solicitor doesn't matter if they like you or not, because they got that legal requirement to make sure they look after you. But in general, I think you have to be able to build those relationships.
No, you do.
So you mentioned obviously when we first spoke, which was a while ago, obviously you started with your first buy to let, and then with buy to lets went into refurbs, and I can't remember. I think it was Tej that called you like Mr. Structural Damage. He said like, if you got an issue somewhere in the Midlands with a structural problem on a property, phone you because you've dealt with it before. What is it about properties with structural issues that attracted you?
I think, so going back to what everyone likes, you talk to anyone now, anyone that's brand new in property, or anyone that's been doing it for the past 2 or 3 years, you'll say to them, look, what are you looking for? And what they'll turn around and say, I used to do these events in Nottingham, also in a few in Blackfriars, but people always say, look, I'm looking for a terrace house that's a 2-bed or 3-bed, and it needs a new kitchen and bathroom. It was a common theme. Yeah. So I always said, well, if that's what everyone wants, surely the price is starting to go up in terms of, if it's worth 110 when it's refurbed, people are going to buy it for 100 grand now, spend 20 grand, there's no margin.
Yeah.
So I was doing them in my early years, and I then realised, hang on a minute, it's difficult to get the deal unless you're doing the wheeling and dealing.
Because there's too much competition. So demand pushes the price up. So even if it was supposed to be lower, by the time you get to best and finals, your owner-occupier, the thing is, the owner-occupier would happily go and get a kitchen and bathroom. You can get a kitchen and bathroom on finance even if you don't have the cash.
Yeah.
So, and because they're living there, they would spend literally to the point of taking all the money out of the deal.
That's it. So I quickly said to myself, look, how do I kind of differentiate from everyone else what they're doing? What can I do instead? And I quickly kind of came across some properties that may have had some small issues. So small issues meaning there might have been no lintel above the window, or there might have been some bricks at the back that were falling out. Yeah. So I quickly started to do projects where it would be one element at a time of these issues. And then after I did a few of those projects, I then said, look, I'm ready for a project where the house is more or less falling down. The windows is dropping, the bricks are falling out, the corners sinking in the corner,
sidings, underpinning.
I said, look, I'm ready for it. So I then started to all of a sudden find that these deals were, they like to say, look, it's a cash buyer deal. However, again, with experience, you can always get development finance on anything, or a bridge on anything. So there could still be bridge, but it's a lot of people going into that. You
just got to know which bridge is fit for purpose as well.
That's correct, which one.
With that experience.
And that's where I found there's a niche in terms of, look, I can go there, something should be worth 200, it might go for 130. Which is the margins will then get
that's
bigger.
Where when people often talk about, like, especially with the current market being quite buoyant, like there being a lot of money out there, a lot of people are buying, auction stocks going really high, like how to find a deal. You're not gonna find a deal in the obvious. Like, so a lot of the time you can find a deal from solving a problem. So whether that be a problem with structural damage, a problem with maybe a sitting tenant that doesn't want to leave, a legal issue like something on the lease, but if you're happy to take the responsibility of solving a problem, that can be where your money is, or seeing the potential that somebody else has missed. So whether that be in somebody looking at maybe something that they think, this is, the whole side needs underpinning. When in actual fact you look at it and you're like, no, it doesn't. Like, because I've got the engineer's report, or I've got I've got the specific experience to know that actually there's a way cheaper solution that's still going to be fit for purpose, and then you've created your own value.
That's it. I mean, just to give you one example, it could be as small as there's a certain type of brick. I think normal bricks are made of clay, if I remember rightly, but there's a certain type of brick that contracts and expands quite a lot. Okay. So again, sometimes I'll see a listing on auction that says structural damage. It's that type of brick, but I know that now.
Yeah, exactly.
The structural engineers told me that.
And that's where it comes from, experience. When I see that,
I'm like, well, of course I'm going to take it. There's nothing probably wrong with subsidence or underpinning. It's just the brick from the thermal warming. It's the wrong type. So just little things like that, like you said, being creative and knowing and looking for something different is what I then went into. As I was doing houses, but it was structural subsidence houses or structural issues.
And I think that's it, because in reality, obviously, in a sort of a slow market where you can put in silly offers and people are maybe desperate to get a buyer, then you get, and you can kind of just find a deal. But you have to be that bit more creative when the market is quite strong to be able to make your own deals, because you literally, we say every week, every time we record one of these, but you make your money when you buy. Like, there's only a certain amount of value you can add. Unless you've got a specific strategy to add value, be that through adding an extra bedroom or a reconfiguration or additional planning, but away from actually adding something to the property, just by refurbing it, you can only add a certain amount of value. There's always going to be a ceiling price in an area, And obviously, as great developers like ourselves, we're confident that we're going to smash the ceiling price, but it can only ever be by a certain percentage. Of
course.
Like, you know, if the maximum a property is sold for on the street is £100,000, it doesn't matter what you do. If you put in a gold-plated toilet, you're never going to get £200,000 because there isn't that value on that street. But yeah, so...
And I think just before we move on, I think what I would then say is, look, I think I'm a firm believer in the incremental steps upwards. And what I mean by that then is, look, I'm not saying let's do a house today and then jump into doing 3 new builds.
Yeah.
Let's do a house today. Let's do a small kitchen extension. Then let's do a 70 metre squared extension. Yeah. Then maybe even 85 metre extension. And then let's do 3 new builds. So it's that process. And that's probably a process that I took, because you always learn something.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we've had similar kind of journeys in terms of the type of projects we've taken on. And I've seen some people with, like, you know, maybe less money or less experience that they go into big projects straight away. And I've seen it, them smash it, and like, amazing that they've done it. I've seen other people that have maybe, you know, gone too hard too soon and have sort of burned out because they took too much risk at once, put all their eggs in one basket, and then it hit like a cash flow problem or an experience problem. And we've almost had to start back at square one. So I think if you are looking at, you know, getting into property, like investment or development, you've really got to kind of have a plan in mind, have a strategy that you're going to follow that works for you and works for like the level of risk that you like to take, and also personal circumstance. Because if you live at home with mum and dad, you can take a lot more risk than if you live out with like dependents, etc. So you have to kind of find that balance. So with you, you know, kind of, and again, if you want to know more about his journey, we've done, like, he's got loads of content on his page. He's done various interviews with myself, with different other people. But today we're going to talk about a few more specifics. So with you moving into the new build space, how have you found that in comparison to like your refurbs and your structural damage issues?
I'm going to say easy and more simple.
Yeah.
And that's the plain overview. And you say, well, how come it's so easy? How come it's so simple? I did my first one, to be fair, back in 2017, I think it was. Finished it in 2018. That was my first ever one. That came with, I guess, the stress, the hassle, and the learning element. So obviously, I guess now when I'm doing quite a lot more on a consistent basis, the reason I say it's easy is everything's brand new.
It's like Lego, basically. Or
it's like Lego. That's it.
Like IKEA. So you follow the plans.
That's it. You follow the plan. So there's no, I need to change the flooring in this room because it's bowed. Yeah. But then all of a sudden, I don't know, you take the floor out here and something falls over there in the other room when you're doing the house, which wasn't on your appraisal. Yeah. And then you're like, oh my days, now I need to do that. Now the plaster's fallen off the ceiling in that room and I didn't want to take it off because I needed to not take it off to keep the cost and the margin up.
Yes, I'd budgeted for a partial rewire, and now we've done full rewire. Now full rewire. Now we basically had to go back to brick. Now I've had to go back to brick, and it's just
and it keeps going on and on and up and up. Whereas with the new build, as you know, I mean, look, I'm working to an area of, I'm doing one at the moment, I think it's 140 metres square worth of brand new joist and chipboard. I mean, again, I'm not a builder, but if I really wanted to do the maths, okay, I know the joist space is either 400 mil or 450 mil. This is the
you can work out exactly.
You
can just get a QS to come in. This is day one, literally cost everything up. So you can kind of have a lot more straightforward parameters, which is good. The only thing, I don't know, like, I think I've described myself before as like a romantic developer in that I actually enjoy the finish. And it's like, I felt sometimes with the new builds, almost like some of the fun was taken out of it because everything is like, okay, so groundworks team come in, do X, Y, Z. It's almost like so, hands off. Yes. That like you almost lose some of the because you're literally building to spec. So it's like, okay, architect design, you've got your planning in. Yeah. There's not really much to tweak or to change or to try and improve. You're just
there's not. And I think for me, I mean, I'm probably it's strange because I've always I call it like the raw and dirty side of things. Yeah. So with all due respect, this is a very nice place in here that I'm sitting in, but I don't like it. Yeah. Well, not saying I don't like the finish. Yeah. I don't like seeing finished products. Okay. So what I mean by that is I like to go in a building and see 8 flats laid out with all the C-stub lining. Yeah. I like it. I like, oh my days, this is exciting. I like to see maybe the half of it bordered, not the other half. Once it starts getting skimmed and the painting, I'm not interested.
You're ready for the next deal now.
Yeah, I'm done. Okay. So that's me as a developer. So the groundwork's being dug, and I can see that. I can see the cement pour. I'm like, oh my days, this is nice. The brickwork goes up. The roof trusses.
We might have to start doing some business because I'm the opposite. When it's all day, I'm like, it's gonna ruin my trainers. I need the little, you know what I mean, the little socks to go over the top. So I'm the opposite. I like to see the finish, and I like, you know what I mean, not so much like interior design, but you know, like, okay, how can we make this a home? Because I guess the nice part is like from doing, you know, flats that are 100,000, because like to be fair, not 100,000, but it was like sort of maybe purchasing stuff for like 150,000. They're selling for like sort of 220s and stuff, cheapest to like stuff like 7 figures and upwards. But it's always nice to be like, okay, for any budget, how can you create something that, you know, when that person views it and they're like, yeah, I want this. Like, this is going to be my house for a while. Like, I love it. You get that great feedback. It's nice to just know that you are kind of creating homes as well, because I think as a developer, sometimes we get like, not not as bad reputation as like a landlord, but like, you know, like sort of just like being money. So being able to see the other side of it, that, you know, obviously the like money is a huge motivation in the field that we're in, but also the potential to actually be able to create these homes that people are living in, you know, for a long time. I mean, look, affordable is a debatable word in London, like, because I think that this flat's like 450,000. It's a 2-bedroom flat in zone 3. But obviously the salaries are higher in London. We tried to design it in a way where potentially it would work for, you know, siblings that wanted to buy it together, or friends, etc., with, you know, the 2 bathrooms and 2 ensuite rooms. But yes, it's just, I think everyone has a different motivation.
No, 100%. That's it. So that's the difference. I mean, like I said, the rip out, stuff like that. That's what gets me going.
That's what you like. You like that. So you're just, that's it. Like once it's looking tired, you're like, no, let me find another deal.
I mean, I'm not interested. That's it. So even at the moment, I'm doing the 8 flats in Sheffield, and they're just about. So for example, 2 flats are already like C-stud line, fully boarded, and I'm just like, I saw it and I was like, I'm done. I'm downstairs, mate. I'm done up here. I don't want to see it again.
So what about then? But how do you do your quality control then? Like, or is it just because you trust your build team now? Like in terms of like your kitchens, bathrooms, like even stuff down to like paint, like you're deciding.
Yeah, sorry. So when I say I'm done, so just to rephrase, retract from that. Sorry, when I say I'm done, the design of the kitchen, I'm still seeing it.
The excitement for you, not like not your involvement.
Not the involvement, the excitement. I'm done with the excitement, but I know there's still a process of look. The kitchen looks like this. I need this appliance. I need that finish of the paint. So I need this door. That's still dictated by me, to be fair. But yeah, the excitement part is finished.
And generally speaking, like in terms of suppliers, have you worked with the same suppliers for like the duration of your journey, or you kind of switch it up based on project or proximity?
I think proximity works as one. Because obviously, again, certain places, I work in Nottingham where there's a supplier that's only in Nottingham and maybe Derby or something like that, and then up north there'll be a different supplier. So yeah, I've done that. But in terms of like kitchens and stuff like that, more or less the same. Like in terms of the Howdens and places like that, the Travis Perkins and places like that.
That's the thing. I think it's a weird space with the suppliers, because I think it's hard for them to get like brand loyalty. You know, in the same way we are with like, I don't know, like once you shop in Tesco's, you pretty much just want to go Tesco's. But I do feel like with, you know, suppliers in building materials, you don't really find that loyalty. Which I think would be interesting if they could find a way to kind of inspire that, because we buy a lot. Like, so if us just moving from like, just because, I don't know, whether it's Travis Perkins is closer than B&Q or Wix, etc. Like, that'd be good if they could actually try and do that.
No, I think so some of the lads I work with are not in sites anyway. I know sometimes it comes down to, look, I'm working today, and the builder's doing something right now. I need something tomorrow. I can pick the phone up and ring them and get it tomorrow. Sometimes for them, and I know with some suppliers, you can pick the phone up, but the phone isn't answered by that company. Or the answering is like, mate, next week.
I know, or even just like requirements. 'Cause I remember you were looking at your project. I think it was I don't know if it was your bank project or one of them, but you had a condition
of 1 a.m. deliveries.
Specific delivery time. So whoever's going to cater to that.
So as an example on that, I'm asking Howdens, look, I want to spend 20 grand with you on kitchens. It needs to come at 1 a.m. They're like, well, no. You ask someone else the same question, someone else says, yeah, mate, if you're spending 20 grand, why not? So that's where you have to flex and move to somewhere else, potentially. Or you've got an order of 10 grand. One person says no, another person, Frankie, for example, say, yeah, that's fine, mate. You're going to spend 50 grand or 100 grand with us on materials. Of course we're going to bring it, mate, at 1 a.m. So that's the example of where you have to move and be flexible. Thank you.
That was 20 minutes.
Pause. Stop. Sorry, quick
quick intermission, as we have no sponsors. You're the sponsor right now, so subscribe to this video if you're enjoying it. Also, if you haven't already, like, comment, all that good stuff. Now, back to the video.
So along your 8-year journey, like what process or what have you found most challenging?
I think for me, I'm going to go quite technical in terms of I think mindset. I think for me, obviously, you work on your own quite a lot. So what I mean by this is I did have a business partner in my early years that I did a lot of transactions with, but they had a mindset of the simple buy-to-let stuff like I referred to. So what I then found is, look, the more I wanted to step away from that, because it was my business partner, they would naturally say, look, let's work on the simple buy-to-let again, let's work on the 2-bed terrace house. So I think challenging wise was the motivation and the mindset to move forward to some of the, I'm going to say bigger stuff that I wanted to get to. Because it's always good when you work at work, for example, for an employer, you always have a manager there that says, hang on a minute, Romero, it's 12 o'clock, your lunch finished at 12 and it's 12:02, your lunch finished at 12 and you're still on your lunch. Get back to your desk, as an example. Or where's that document that I need to have by 5 o'clock on Friday? It's not here yet. So you've got someone constantly kind of in your ear saying, look, do this or do that, and moving you forward. So I think challenging wise has been, look, having that person there that's alongside you to push you forward to the next level. And what I found is that a lot of occasions it's me having to push myself. What I then started to do is then, I guess, link with individuals that would give me that little ear that I needed. So not that they're experienced in the field, but they'll say, look, hang on a minute, mate, you've been doing houses, do something different or level up a little bit more. So although I was trying to push myself, I then had 1 or 2 business partners that I started to work with that were saying, look, I want to do something with you, mate, but I don't want to be spending 60 grand. I want to be spending 150k, or I want to be spending 250k. So just keep pushing you forward in that sense.
And I think they haven't always got to be a business partner, but sometimes just somebody who's like-minded, who you can bounce ideas off, like a sounding board, like just someone you can sit down and talk with. Like they could be a business partner, or they could be, I don't know, they could be anything. But as long as they motivate you, I think that's important, because like, I think being self-employed, you have to be self-employed for the right reasons. Like, you know, I mean, obviously, and there's loads of different reasons. Sometimes money is the motivator. Sometimes having your own time is a motivator. But there has to be something in that is going to push you forward when it is hard. Because there are times when, you know, being self-employed, that it is really hard, because you've got no support structure in place like you would do in a job. You've got, you know, if you don't go in, or if you don't, you know, make sure something's happening, you don't get paid. So how have you found like the whole journey of actually being your own boss?
I think it's been good. I think my motivation from that point of view was, like you said, I think it was more about the time, and having the time to do other things. So when I first quit my job, for example, full time, I had a little boy that was due on the way. So for me, it was, when I look at that time I had with him in terms of, look, you've got a project that's running, or maybe 2 projects at the same time. At those stages, it was, I think I'm going back like 5 or 6 years ago. So unfortunately, at that stage, I think I might have been the one picking up 10 boxes of towels at that point. So you can imagine, I'm a little kid that's 2 months old. You still need to go and pick up 10 boxes of towels, or maybe a toilet that has to fit in the car, and it can't even fit in, for example, because it comes in a box that's too big. So the aim and objective was always time. So even the fact that, I mean, you can sit down here today, when usually at this time of day I would have to be in an office somewhere, is a blessing in itself. That we can talk here now, we can deliver content to someone else that might be watching it at 7 o'clock in the night, or 10 o'clock in the night before work tomorrow.
Exactly.
They're getting the motivation that they need to then follow a similar journey. Of course it's challenging. You sit at work, you're on, I mean, I think I was on, let's say, 2 grand a month or something like that. I had a few buy-to-lets in the background, maybe not giving me that kind of level of profit. So what I did to myself is said, look, I'm prepared to step back to then go forward. Whether it's in the next 6 months, whether it's in the next 5 years, but I know at some point I hopefully should be able to step forward in terms of that 2 grand a month being more sufficient. Whether it's 5 years, 10 years, like I just said, it doesn't matter, because the key driver here is the time. So if I make £500 in the month, or £600, whatever it was, from the buy-to-lets that I had, it was enough to still be sustainable to pay the necessity stuff, which is food and rent, and that's it. Forget all the other nice stuff, with a nice hoodie or jumper or whatever it is, or a nice pair of trainers, that's all secondary. My nan told me a good saying that said, look, if you've got a pair of clothes, so you've got some jeans, you've got a hoodie on the top, put that same thing in the washer when you go home, wash it and make sure it's dry by tomorrow. And that saying was kind of saying, look, you don't need to go and buy and spend more stuff. Just quickly, I went to Brazil when I finished university at 22. And I remember talking to a guy that was from Brazil. We had a conversation. He said, look, mate, I make X amount a month, and it was a good wage for what he was doing. But he said, look, mate, I still can't afford to pay rent. And this T-shirt I've got on, I didn't buy it from the shop that you see here on the street. I bought it from like a charity shop. Probably cost him like £2 in his money, which is like 10, 15 quid in our money. But that taught me something, that he's working on a good job in Brazil, and he still gets a charity shop to buy a T-shirt. And that stays with me my whole life from when I was 21, 22. And I always thought from that, look, it's nice that we can afford nice stuff at times, but I mean, we can.
Yeah, it's all relative. Like, you know what I mean? You can get, I think, and that's a lot of things, a lot of important things that you touched on there that I think obviously you can't get too caught up in the materialistic stuff, because I mean, if you like it, it will come, but you haven't got to get overly fixated on it. One thing I like that you touched on as well, that I don't think, I personally, this might be incorrect, I'm sure there's some people that have done it in other ways, but I don't personally feel like you're a real property developer unless you've had to transport tiles or adhesive unsafely and overload a vehicle that probably wasn't fit for purpose. Because it's kind of like that adage of not like fake it till you make it, but we're just trying to make it work. Yeah. Like, so I had the Honda Civic, seats down in the back, like, you know what I mean, just still trying to save it, because that was my van, plus my going out car, plus, you know what I mean,
everything.
Like the car for everything. So just trying to look after it. But I think a lot of property developers and a lot of, like, you know, even in people that talk, we missed that stage. We missed the stage of when it was like, look, people weren't sure if I was a property developer or I was homeless, because I was half, like, jeans were ripped, trainers had holes in them, like the car had dents in it, like everything, but you're working towards something. And that ties in nicely to what you said about sometimes, you know, you probably looked outwardly, like if we talk about like a snapshot, like whether it be Instagram or just somebody that's seen you, when you were earning £2,000 a month, like, you know, car was always clean, you were always tidy going to work, finished at 9 to 5, had time to be out on the weekends doing whatever you wanted. Like, to somebody else that might have looked like their vision of success because you were comfortable. But for you knew that, do you know what, I've got to kind of have less free time. I've got to probably like have less disposable income. I've got to maybe make some sacrifices with friends and family in terms of what I'm able to do with them. But those steps backwards are actually what propelled yourself to go forward. It's almost like the idea of like a catapult. Sometimes you got to pull back to the point where you snap and go crazy on them.
And I think, and even, I mean, again, you can read books or you can watch TV programs and they'll say, look, I had a saying at the time when I was doing like the sessions, and said, look, I think it was something about you can be being prepared to fail, or not being scared to fail. So that was my idea when I quit work. I said, look, I'm going to sit here and I'm not scared to fail, but by not being scared to fail means I've got the motivation to succeed. And that's key for anyone is, look, we don't want to fail, but keep that motivation there and make sure you say to yourself, look, I'm going to succeed, and then go and do it.
No, that's big. That's big advice for anyone that's looking to get into property. Well, to be fair, not even just property, but any business as a whole. Before we started speaking today, actually, we spoke about something that I thought was interesting, and I think you were asking me about just like joining Instagram late and why, and we touched on the fact that a lot of people find property really interesting. Did you realize like you were doing something like cool when you were doing, like at what point did you realize that like there was a lot of interest in what you did?
I think for me, I'm not saying similar to you, because I did join it from years back when I first kind of set up kind of a company Instagram page and website and stuff like that, which was back in 2018. But what I didn't realize is, shout out Luigi Newton, he's from Nottingham, LN Capital. He got into property quite a few years after me, so he's probably been about 4 or 5 years, correct me if I'm wrong. But he kind of approached me, he said, bro, your stuff's hard. So he reached out to me and said,
that's what I say to you all the time, bro. You're bad hard.
Yeah,
he looks at me like this. I swear.
So literally, he reached out to me and said, oh, bro, I need to talk to you. So he ran me and said, look, he said, bro, your stuff's hard. He said, I can't believe like you're not even, like you don't really post yourself on your Instagram page. You don't do anything. And I said, oh, to be fair, I saw seen your page, it looks good, you post yourself and stuff like that. So I went away from that conversation with him, and that's where I think on one of the questions for the episode we spoke about who's your hero, and I said well, I don't really have one. However, a new kid on the block could drop a gem that I could still take. And what that's saying is, look, I'm experienced with 8 years. It doesn't mean that I know it all. It means that someone brand new could say something that I can still take. And why not? Why am I going to sit here with kind of my chest held high and say, I'm not going to listen to you?
Yeah. No,
why not? Do you know what I mean? So I could still take that gem. So from this point of view, obviously with LN, he said, look, post yourself more, mate. Post yourself more. You're hard. And what I then found 12 months after that, when I started kind of getting into the flow of the posting and stuff like that, a lot of natural attention came of, look, can I talk to you about this? Can I talk to you about that?
And it's
can
like
we move forward with this?
You get deals off the back of it.
You got deals off the back of it, and it went forward from there. So, that's when I realised, kind of back in 2018, 19.
Because I feel like it's a space that, like, you know, we have a natural affinity as people, like, especially as English people, like, or if you're British, like, you know, the idea of like an Englishman's home is his castle, or castle is his home. I never remember which way around that is. But it's like the idea of owning property is something that is kind of culturally almost quintessentially British. And then the idea of investing in property is kind of something that from an early age, even when we don't really understand a lot of investments, that tangible investment of property is something that when people do start to be more successful in their given fields, that they want to get into. So I do find there is a massive amount of interest in potentially looking to get into investment or development in some sphere, which I think is really good, and why it's good to have these conversations, because there are a lot of people that maybe can't understand how they could get from that job making £1,000, £2,000 a month, or what it takes to even get from where you were like 8 years ago making X amount, being relatively comfortable, to having to be uncomfortable, to now be talking about buying a bank, doing 8 new build flats over there, this many new build houses over here, and still feeling like it's only the tip of the iceberg in what you could potentially, you know, achieve in this property space, which I think is really motivational. I think that is a really good place to wrap this up. For those that don't know or are catching up later, what are your socials? Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Brighter_investments with an S on Instagram.
Don't worry, it's going to be like down right here. What level are we at? Like further down or right down there? The videographer said down there. South Point Media are going to put it down there. That's definitely good. Before we let you go, there's one question we ask all our guests, which is, if I was 16, 17, 18, because the most common question I get asked, and I'm like to delegate, as all good managers do, so I'm going to ask you instead, and I want to get into property in the future, what should I be doing to prepare myself now?
Preparation wise, then, I don't think, I did this early, which is obviously the reading element, so reading the books that have got gems in there, they've got things you can take a note of and refer back to. There's a lot of great books out there at the moment. Secondary to that, what I would also say is, look, there'll be someone doing something for students at some point. So I know, for example, yourself, you've done like a day with students, it's free of charge. I know I do stuff for myself similar, and I'm sure there's many guys out there that do stuff like that as well. But also get down some of these courses that are free of charge as well.
Yeah,
have a look.
Taste the days. You don't know what you don't know.
That's it.
Exactly.
Some good ones out there. So do that, meet someone there, and try and pull off them as well. But help that person at the same time that you're pulling information from.
So that's a wrap. I'm Kaz from Property by Kazy. This is Romero from Brighter Investments. If you're not already, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're following, make sure the post notifications are on. If you've got any questions that we didn't answer today, drop a comment and one of us will get back to you. And if you want to see somebody else here, drop their name in the comments and we'll try and get them on.